Hello, everyone. I hope you all are staying safe and doing well. And yes, it's the 28th of December, and in Melbourne, it's awfully cold. Spell of chillness in between summer. So it's kind of those weird things that happens in 2020. It's just an acceptable thing nowadays. So here we are. I'm feeling a bit cold. It is sunny with the sun shining brightly in the evening outside, but it's good. And as you can see, this poster here, which I'm very fond of, it's from a science fiction novel, one of my favorites. It's called Dune. Yeah, for those of you who are like science fiction buffs, you should really venture uh, into this storyline. It's really worth knowing the storyline. That's Paul Atreides looking at the two moons of Arrakis. It's a fictional world called Arrakis. So again, it's something to do with planets and stars and astronomy. So in the astrological form, it's kind of relevant as well. Anyhow, today's video, I'm going to talk about the moon or Chandra. And in Vedic astrology, other than the Lagna is house number 1. So it's the first bhava or the first house. Then you've got the moon. The placement of the moon is called the Raasi house, right? So whichever your Raasi is just saying that that's where your moon is. So in the Vedic astrology framework, we place a lot of importance for the moon. So I would like to tell you all why that is and the significance of that, and when does the moon actually play a role with all the other 8 other planets that is trying to transit into specific houses from the moon or in close proximity to the moon, and what is the influence of that. So that is what this video is about. So please stay on if you're curious to know about it. And I'm going to look at it in a mathematical, scientific point of view. As usual, that's how I look at astrology. Nothing fancy, no magic, no shortcuts. It's all about numbers, degrees, minutes, seconds, proximity, closeness, even things like the brightness of the moon, because the moon, as we know, is the only planet that grows and shrinks with in terms of its luminosity. In contrast to those of the other planets. So the moon is kind of different, and with the difference, there is the significance of that. And in the Vedic system, we account for moon as the mother and the mind. So that's why the Raasi comes in, because it dictates the clarity or the obscurity of your mind. At the time of birth, based on your Raasi chart, the placement of your moon and the proximity of that with other planets, whether they are the benefic, the good planets, or the malefic planets like Saturn, Mars, they are the negative ones, the malefic planets. Positive planets like Sukran, which is Venus, or Guru, Jupiter. Of course, the moon doesn't take anyone else as its enemies, because moon is mother, and the mother doesn't view any other planet as its any other planets which it considers its children. Doesn't really, a mother doesn't really consider any of its children as negative or to be having some enmity with them. There are no enemies for the moon. So I'm going to talk about, in the scientific way again, synodic month versus the sidereal month of the moon. So you got a lunar month, roughly 28 to 29 days. And how is that different for the two types of months that I said, synodic versus that of sidereal? And we've got apogee, perigee, which will look at the closeness of the moon to the earth, Within one lunar month, there will be a point where it is closest. There will be a point where it is the furthest. So what does that mean in the Vedic astrology point of view? Do stick around and we will look at that. Please subscribe to my channel. Please leave some comments, some ideas for the future, your aspirations for the coming year, what you would like to see, what you would like me to talk about. You can give some recommendations. Right, happy to look at them. So yes, let's get on to that. I've got here a slide pack that I'm going to talk about the moon or Chandra or Sandiran, what have you. But yeah, so here it is, a simple introduction to the moon. Again, it's all very surface level. And I would refrain myself from going in depth, but I want to give you the scientific approach to astrology when it comes to the study of the moon. Because like I've mentioned that we place great importance on Raasi when it comes to the transit, to the calculation of transit. For example, Ashtamasani, Yaldrasani of the native, we look at the moon, the placement of the moon rather. So I'm going to get my laser pointer handy. So this is just an image of the moon, the face of the moon that we see from the Earth. Of course, you've got various meteorite hampering onto the surface of the moon. But let's get on to it. First off, I want to talk about what tidal locking is. The moon does experience something called a tidal lock. Let's just quickly go through the text here, then I'll show you the very, very interesting animation on the side. The moon and the Earth both orbit at the same rate, right? So the ratio of the speed of the Earth orbit is 1. That of the moon is also 1. It's an elliptical orbit, so it's asymmetric. It's not a perfect circle, which I will show you shortly. There are 2 types of orbits, the sidereal and the synodic. If you want to look at the calculation done by Johannes Kepler sometime in the 16th century, pre-Victorian times, so he said that there is the motion or the time it takes for the orbit. There is this calculation if you want to have a cross-check of it. So let's talk about the synchronous motion of moon and Earth and what it means 1 to 1. We believe, the perceived belief on the right side here is that this is the Earth, of course, and then there's the moon going around it. At different times, you can see different parts or different phase of the moon, right? Which is actually kind of false. The moon always shows one side. This is what actually is happening. It shows only one side of its face to the Earth and to the people of the Earth and all the creatures therein. Only one side of the moon is being perceived, is being looked at, right? So if I were to go back one slide, this is the face that we see. We do not see the other end of it, never ever, right? Unless you take a rocket ship and you travel close to the moon, and which our Apollo and astronauts and the Russians and the Chinese have done. So they have gone orbited around the moon and they know what is on the other side. Now we've got photographic evidence and stuff. But from the surface of the Earth, we always see one side, right? So that is what a tidal lock is, a ratio of 1 to 1. Right? So the rate of the Earth is also orbiting, it's spinning, and the rate of this spin and the rate of the spin of the moon is equal. So bear in mind that even if you're standing on the moon, you will only see one side of the Earth. It goes both sides, right? It goes both ways. So we see one side of the moon. If you happen to stand on the moon, you see only one side of the Earth. Why is this important? Right? when you are born, the placement of the moon, wherever it is in your chart, in your Raasi chart, whichever house your moon is placed. For example, Rishabham, right? So we know that the moon is in Rishabham, so we say that it is Rishabha Raasi. The native is a Rishabha Raasi, and Rishabham or Taurus is owned by Venus, Sukran. So you have to read your chart in such a way. First thing is that Venus takes the moon as its enemy, but the moon doesn't take any planet as its enemy. Moon has got no enemies. Like I've mentioned, moon is the mother. The mother looks at all her children equally, with equal love and favoritism. Right. So placement of the moon in whichever house, whether Simha Rasi or Rishabha Rasi, Magara Rasi, whatever. Right. That is one thing. That placement of the moon in your Rasi chart during the time of birth, that is going to signify how you're going to carry your mind throughout your life. You're going to be viewing life in that permanent fashion. For example, if you are a person who was born where the moon is placed with Jupiter, right? If you are in Sagittarius, right? In the house of Sagittarius, the natural owner of Sagittarius is Guru or Jupiter, right? And let's say, for argument's sake, that Jupiter is in that house with Moon as well. So in that same house, Sagittarius or Dhanusu Rasi native, right? So you've got the Moon there, Jupiter is there, and let's say it's a full moon. That's where we are going to next. So full moon, you have a full mind, versus that of a new moon, you have no mind, very weak mind. But if your moon is next to good planet, right? It's a benefic planet like Jupiter or Venus, right? It kind of helps the moon. So it kind of helps your mind. So Jupiter and moon in Sagittarius is very bright, right? So you are going to go through your entire life with the mind that everyone is your friend, because Jupiter, and let's say you are a full moon, good mind, yeah, full mind, and Jupiter is a friendly planet, as the characteristic, the imagery of Jupiter is like a happy, jovial, fat person, who likes to laugh a lot and make everyone else around him or her happy, right? So you would have that kind of a mindset throughout your life, right? If you are in Simha Rasi, which is owned by the sun, Suryan, and it so happened that Saturn is, planet Saturn is in the same house with the moon in the sun house in Simha Rasi, which Saturn really doesn't like being there. So, and also depending on the proximity between the moon and Saturn, right? So if moon and Saturn, they're very close, this person, their mindset in life would be quite negative. They always suspect people. They always want to cheat people, fraudulent thoughts, right? They always want to take the shortcut in life. They don't believe in being fair, right? If I can cheat you and I can make money off you, I will do it. That kind of mindset. If, moon is close to that kind of a planet, the placement, and that's how throughout your life, the Vedic astrological system places great importance on the moon, because mindset is most important. If you have every other planet in a negative position in your chart, but your moon is positive and it's full moon, next to good planets, right? You can overcome anything, right? And of course, vice versa is true. If you're next to a dark planet like Sunny or Rahu, no matter how good your life is, you will always find something negative to talk about. There is your life is always a glass half empty or a glass full empty, regardless of how successful or how financially safe, or you may have good friends and all, but you will never see it. Your mind doesn't allow you to see it. And that's the point of having a Raasi system on top of your Lagna system. So going back here, tidal lock, one phase of the moon at every single point, meaning that you will always have that one mindset throughout your life. Right. Perigee and Apogee, like I said, the orbit of the moon around the Earth, right? Of course, the Earth is not in scale, right? But just to give you an idea that there would be a point where it is closest, just a perigee, and this is the range of it. And apogee is roughly about 33,000 km further. Apogee, the moon is further away. Perigee, the moon looks closer. So if you are born at a time like this and it happens to be a full moon, you would have a lovely, lovely time in your life. But if you also have a full moon at the apogee, right, you would still have a good mind, right? But of course, obviously, this trumps this, right? This happens at Vrichigam, where the moon is in its lowest point, right? Debilitated point. This one, Perigee, happens in Rishabha Raasi, behind Rohini, as I've mentioned in my other videos. The moon's favorite star is Rohini, and the reason for that is it's the closest here. So when it's in this point, being the closest to the Earth, behind it would be Rohini, right? So the star right behind the moon at this point is Rohini, or Aldebaran in the Greek terminology, right? So exact opposite, 7 houses away, it's the lowest point, this is the highest point, right? So Perigee and Apogee, so I picked it up from this website, so all references are being acknowledged, right? So the apparent size is this versus that of the apogee, so you can see there is a reduction in size, and of course you also see the same side of it, right? This is not going to change. You see this point here, there's some meteorite crashes here, also the same point here. Always same side of the moon at any time, at any part of the world, in fact. The precession rather, it takes on an epicidal mode. What does that mean? We know that it's an ellipse, right? But this elliptical orbit doesn't stay this way. It kind of spins around like a top. If I am sure that some of you would have played in your childhood top, right? You would be spinning tops on the ground, right? So as the top is losing its speed, it'll kind of wobble around in its place, right? So the same thing happens here. It is wobbling. So as you can see, this part is closer to the Earth versus that of this part is further away. So even these have been calculated into the Vedic astrological framework, so it is accurate. The sidereal orbit, what is that? It's just the orbit of the moon around the Earth. And how long that takes? Roughly 27.3 days. So if you were to mark off here as the start of it and the time it takes for it to come back, a full circle is 27.3 days. So that's one kind of orbit. You have got the synodic orbit. Right, so what does that mean? I have to show you with an example here. You've got the sun, you've got the earth, and then you've got the moon. If you want to get a new moon or Amavasya moon, there is no moon, right? The moon has got no light. As I've mentioned, the moon is the only planet that can grow and shrink, right? So new moon, meaning that the moon is there, but it's got no light. It's complete darkness. How does that happen? The moon gets in the way of the sun. So in a linear pathway like this, the earth, if you're standing here, you have to experience this pathway, moon in between you and the sun. So earth travels about 30 degrees per month, right? Because 360 degrees makes a full circle. There are 12 months. So we know 360 degrees divided by 12 months is 30 degrees for a month. So after it has moved 30 degrees, you would think that, okay, 30 degrees has come this way, right? The moon has done this, right? But now you have to see the next new moon because now you have moved further south to the sun, right? And now the moon is here. You have to go an additional 2.2 days. The moon has to go an additional 2.2 days to give you another period of new moon, because this is where you're standing now. The same arrangement between you and the sun, the moon has to block your pathway, so you experience another new moon. 30 degrees movement down here gives you only up to here, right? How do we know that? Because now if you allow me to go back one slide, 27.3 days it comes back here. But you remember that even the earth is orbiting around the sun. So you have to imagine earth has moved 30 degrees this way, right? So exactly what has happened here, 30 degrees this way, the moon has come back to the same point of reference here, but you need another new moon, so you go an additional, for the moon, this degree angle here is 30 degrees, giving you a movement of 29.5 days. So it's like 360 plus 30, so 390 degree turn for the moon, which gives you 29.5 days. So you see that there is a discrepancy between these two. 27 days here, 29 days here. We know the ancient sages and rishis in the Vedic astrological system, they know, they've made this correction to the Bhava chart, right? It is accurate. Again, Tirukanidam system is the one that does this, accurately calculating the movement and the additional 30 degrees of the moon. It is spot on, right? There is no question about it. And that is it from me. And this would be the end of the slide pack. Yes, it is. So I wish you all a good day. And I hope you found this to be informative. I hope you would be kind enough to leave your views and comments in the comment section below. For those of you who want me to read your charts, please reach out to the contact details in my YouTube channel. Right? Feel free. And I'll be in touch with my next videos. Thank you.